So what happens when you work hard and earn money, you're literally giving away your life energy.
Yeah.
You only have one life, you only live so many years. And this is what's so tragic about what happened in COVID.
Mm-hmm.
People who had saved for 30 or 40 years and they had a certain savings that they put away and they thought this will fund my retirement or this will help me in my old age, suddenly had that savings devalued by 40% in 2 years by the government, basically. And that's just criminal. It's theft of their life, literally, of their time and earnings. There's no other way to say it other than it's criminal. Part of what I tried to do with the book was to give everybody the history of the sound money camp. And it's been around for a long time. I mean, Andrew Jackson was part of it. George Washington was part of it. Garfield was part of it. I mean, I've got quotes, throughout the years of many, many people who've understood this was the fundamental problem. Lindbergh was part of it. He railed against the establishment of the Federal Reserve. This is Lindbergh's father, not the aviator. There have been many people fighting for this thing, understanding that sound money is a moral issue, that the government stealing from its people is wrong, and it allows them to create wars, and it's just a bad thing. When the founders all got together and worked on the Constitution down in Philadelphia, they were very much aware of the risks of fiat currency, printing paper and saying this is money. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution literally says only gold and silver, shall be deemed to be money.
Counterfeiting money was punishable by death. Do you know if they ever executed anybody?
I don't think they did.
They never did, okay.
Based on what I've read. I mean, I could be wrong about that historically, but it was a serious crime, right? I mean,
now it's just part of monetary policy.
Well, that's exactly right. G. Edward Griffin wrote a really funny thing in Creature of Jekyll Island. He said, in that particular case, the Senate, the Congress, Treasury Department, and the President would all be subject to the death penalty, and the Federal Reserve would all be subject to the death penalty today because they all counterfeit money.
Welcome back to another episode of Cypherpunked, in the third episode of our series on Larry's book, The Big Print. Larry Lepard, welcome back.
Nice to be with you, Matty. Let's go for it.
So today we're going to talk about sound money, fiat money, and also why sound money is a moral issue, which cover chapters 8 and 9 of your book. I'll open it up here with something you put in your book. Stated simply, money is a medium of exchange, a unit of account, and a store of value. Let's go down the rabbit hole a little bit.
Well, that's those are the definitions, or that is the commonly accepted definition, widely accepted definition of money today. And the Austrian economists would say that money can be anything. It is the good which is most liquid, which we all accept as. And basically, and this is something that's missed by a lot of people. Money is a little bit of a collective illusion. It's what we all decide on and agree to exchange with one another. And gold became the best form of money, the most sound form of money historically because of its characteristics. But there have been many other forms of money over the time. As we all know, tobacco was money and beads were money and seashells were money. And there have been lots of forms of money over the history of the world. But we converged on gold because it seemed to hold, it met the needs in the best way. And one of the important needs that I want to point out, and we will discuss, I'm sure, is just the need to hold its value over time, to not be changeable over time. And, these commodity monies, like gold is one of them, because they are physical and they have certain properties, and they can't be messed with by the government, they have a real significant time value storage of value component that makes them better than the fiat money. I mean, the greatest weakness of fiat money, and by definition, fiat money is money that the government determines is money because they say it is. In other words, they print dollar bills and they say these are money because we say they are. The risk of that is, of course, that they can print too many of them, and they have. So,
I'll read a segment from your book. Throughout history, various commodities have served as money, including beads, salt, livestock, tobacco, grain, copper, silver, and gold. At the end of the day, and without government interventions, gold and silver naturally emerged as the best forms of money because they were scarce, durable, transportable, recognizable, and divisible.
That's right.
Did you ever read the Nick Szabo's piece called Shelling Out?
Yeah, it's a great piece. I loved it.
Yeah, it's a fantastic piece.
Great.
What's important to note is that these, like gold, especially silver, they kind of it wasn't like, hey, we just picked this to be the money. It was a period of different civilizations interacting, using different types of monies.
Absolutely.
The civilizations that were using these softer monies, like seashells, for example, when they came in contact with civilizations that were using harder money, They were completely obliterated. I mean,
Yes.
this is a story of like, Africa, for example. A lot of those peoples used beads and shells as money. And as the Westerners came to those shores, they realized these guys are accepting shells as money. So they would just go back, print up the beads and the shells, just find a bunch of them and come back and essentially expropriate that wealth. They would hyperinflate their economies.
They give them the shells and say, give us your gold and silver.
Yeah. That was like in South America too. Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's a sad story, but
it is it's
a story as old as time. Right. So, you talked about here as well. You talked about, you had some Voltaire quotes, but eventually, however, leaders bowed to the temptation to remove the precious metals backing and overissued the currency, resulting in hyperinflation. The arc of humanity is littered with this sad tale. And then this quote by Voltaire: paper money eventually returns to its intrinsic value, zero.
And it's not just paper money, even commodity, what was thought to be commodity money. I mean, the Roman Empire is a really great example, right? So they started off with the denarius, which was originally 100% silver. And by the time Rome fell, the denarius was really an iron coin.
Oh, yeah. They had just clipped it. And
they had clipped it and they diluted it over and over and over again in an effort to make more of them because there was a natural limit to the amount of silver they had. So
I think it was the sovereign individual talked a little bit about this and basically said that the Romans at some point, they had basically tried to keep the value of the coins the same. And the people were like, no, it's not the same.
We know it's not.
We know it's not. And eventually they said that was kind of what led to, the disintegration of that sort of Roman Empire, as people were just like, fuck this, I'm going into the fields and I'm going to have my own little estate. And you kind of got that serf model that.
You went back to a system of barter.
Yeah.
Actually, was what happened, I think.
Yeah. But they said that it was because they tried to essentially centralize and manipulate, do price controls and kind of do all this stuff that people were just like, we just can't live this way. We just can't do it.
Yeah. Well, when money becomes worthless, trade and society breaks down.
History shows us that men in governments in control of fiat currency inevitably succumb to the temptation to print excessive money, allowing them to live beyond their means. It is nearly impossible to resist this temptation. And there was I wish I had this quote, but it was a famous quote from like the year 1200 of the Muslim Caliphate, but just really talked about these cycles of exactly what we're describing here, and how it kind of and it was like this is not a lesson that was like that people didn't know 2,000 years ago.
No,
like these lessons were known by scholars.
The kings would clip the coins. The kings would put their face on a coin and say it had value, even if it didn't have enough precious metal in it. I mean, it's called signorage. I mean, this has been used. I mean, fiddling with the money has been used by the people at the top for a long time as a way to try to take advantage of other people.
So I'll give this quote from Nathan Lewis that you put in your book.
I love it. Yeah.
Soft money is literally monopoly money. So if soft money is just monopoly money that can be printed, what is sound money? Can you explain that?
Sure. I mean, by definition, sound money has to be scarce. And I believe sound money has to be difficult to produce. And so if something is scarce and difficult to produce, then it will hold its value. And in history, silver and gold were the two best forms, and now Bitcoin is an even better form. Yeah, because it is scarce and it is difficult to produce. The process of mining it costs money in terms of energy and electricity. So, these two forms, analog and digital sound money, to me, are destined to be the currency of the future, the currencies of the future, at least on a store of value basis. There will be other currencies, perhaps, that will be used on medium of exchange. And as we all know, technology allows all kinds of mediums of exchange. But to me, the most important value or characteristic of money is its store of value characteristic, to be able to transport value through time and space. Because what happens when you work hard and earn money, you're literally giving away your life energy.
Yeah.
You're literally putting, you only have one life, you only live so many years. And this is what's so tragic about what happened in COVID. People who had saved for 30 or 40 years and they had a certain savings that they put it away and they thought this will fund my retirement or this will help me in my old age, suddenly had that savings devalued by 40% in 2 years. And that by the government, basically. And that's just criminal. And so the notion that, it's theft of their life, literally, of their time and earnings. And it's, there's no other way to say it other than it's criminal.
Yeah. I mean, you're mentioning like even a first world story. And I know we'll touch on this later in your book, but I remember when I know somebody that had like a grandmother who was saving, like she saved all her life, and she's from Venezuela, and she saved all her life for her grandchildren, like for their education. And like you're talking about we're talking about the inflation that we expect here in the first world, which is like a level of theft that we kind of like, okay, they're stealing 2% a year, but like you said, after the money printing and stuff, it's much higher, but it's nothing. It's way less than what half the planet experiences.
Oh, absolutely.
In Venezuela and Zimbabwe and these other countries.
Africa. Yeah.
The story of this lady who literally like she was very wealthy, and then the hyperinflation that occurred, because most people don't understand all these games that are being played behind the scenes by politicians and bureaucrats and cantillionaires. Like, people got to work, people are busy. They just like, it's hard to comprehend all this stuff.
Right.
You're going to have to watch a podcast series like this to really unpack it, because it is very insidious.
Yeah.
But it struck me, the story where basically she said like, within the matter of a couple of weeks, she lost her life savings. And by the time it was 3 or 4 weeks later, it was like she could barely afford a plane ticket to come to the United States to like get away.
And she was like, probably the equivalent of a millionaire before that happened.
Yeah, essentially she had a nice money saved for her grandchildren's retirement and all this. And it's like, so. No,
when currencies fail, it's absolutely devastating to people who've stored their wealth and their lifetime and their earnings in that currency.
Yeah.
It's tragic.
Here in your book, you wrote, I view gold as analog sound money and Bitcoin as digital sound money. Can you explain that, like analog versus digital, and compared to other technologies?
Yeah, sure. I can
understand.
And a lot of gold people think that there can't be digital sound money. We can talk about that too. But the fact of the matter is, the nice thing about a gold coin is that you can feel it, touch it. It represents final and complete payment. If you provide me with some food and I provide you with a gold coin, I've got the food, you've got the coin. There's no remaining credit event left. I don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
So that is a sound transaction without debt involved. Both counterparties walked away with what they wanted. Digital sound money is the same thing, but you have to get away from and some people say that therefore only gold can be sound money because it has a physical component to it. I understand that point of view, but I would also say that even in the ancient days, before gold became money, there was another thing that was going on that was what I call credit. And Lynn talks about this in her book. She's brilliant about it. Is social credit, which is to say that, money represents an obligation amongst people, and if you have money and I have goods and we trade and so it provides the means of transferring value. But before, gold emerged, there were things called ledgers, and the Sumerians had them and the caves had them. And you could see people making marks and keeping score of transactions.
The very first writing in all of history was ledgers.
Yes. And so,
single entry bookkeeping, essentially.
I own you this much grain. You owe me that much grain. I killed this many bison. You killed them. People kept track, and they had obligations to one another that were written in ledgers. And so there was really no money taking place, moving, nothing physical changed hands, but the score was kept. And so what really eventually happened is, okay, that was fine in a small society where people knew each other and people trusted the ledger. Mm-hmm. But as we got into bigger societies and people were trading with other people they didn't know, they couldn't trust that the ledger would work, and they were on different sides of the world. So they wanted something physical to exchange. So, the people from China came to the Caribbean or the Mediterranean and said, we're going to exchange silk for, whatever it is you produce. We need something we can take back. Well, gold and silver became, the new thing. And so gold and silver emerged as money. But even after that, when the telegraph came out and people could start, and banking emerged, people could start keeping score in banks. And of course, you might have $10,000 in the bank, but that's not cash. That's just a digital entry in the bank. It's a digital ledger entry. And, that you could go to the bank and turn it into 10,000, although it'd be hard because they generally don't have that much cash in hand. You'd have to call ahead and they'd give you shit about trying to get $10,000 out. But the point is that we now live in a ledger-based society for all intents and purposes. And so if you can have a ledger, which is, and if you trust the ledger, this is an important point. Those banks could erase, as the U.S. did with the Soviets, we grabbed all their money. They had a ledger entry of $600 billion. We said, nope, sorry, that's ours. Okay, if you have a ledger that can be trusted and that's immutable and that's distributed and that's fair, which is what Bitcoin is, I would contend that you actually can have a ledger which represents sound money, because there's a limited supply. We all know what it is. Nobody has an advantage over anybody else in that ledger system. And so I would contend that you really don't need to have a physical item, i.e. a gold coin, to represent sound money. You can actually have a ledger-based form of sound money. And I think that's important. And that's actually something a lot of gold people have missed, and a lot of gold people are sore about, because Bitcoin is stealing share from gold, and a lot of gold people are like, hey, we believe in sound money too. Stick to the original. And that's fine. If you want to stick to the original, great. It's less volatile than Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is going to grow faster in value because you've got this adoption curve taking place. So I guess the point that's important to make is that Bitcoiners and myself, who used to be a gold guy and still am a gold guy, I don't dislike gold in any way, shape, or form. I just think that Bitcoin is superior. Have graduated, or my thinking has emerged. It took me time to do this, by the way. I didn't immediately go, oh yeah. Great, Bitcoin's better. I'm going to get rid of all my gold and go Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It took time and convincing and understanding, but I eventually came to see that, you know what? This really is a sounder form of money than gold, because the stock to flow ratio is lower.
Yeah.
And the supply is limited, and we are increasing the supply of gold every year. Not very fast, but it is increasing. So you can have digital sound money, I guess, is the point I'd like to make.
Mm-hmm. There's also other characteristics of money that make Bitcoin superior, right? Like this idea of transportability through space, right?
Yes,
it's very difficult
quickly,
and it's very important.
Well, and verifiability.
Yeah,
it's triple entry accounting.
Yeah,
there's a debit and a credit. Mm-hmm. There's also a ledger that you can see and I can see. I mean, as we all know, the U.S. says they have 261.5 million ounces of gold in Fort Knox.
Is it really there though?
Well, that's
we talked about this, you and Dominic, a couple months ago.
The last audit was in Eisenhower's day. So,
I mean, even if you walk in there and you see all the...
Well, they have gold there. There's no doubt about that.
There's some gold there, but even if you see all the bars, do you really know? Even if you weigh it, do you really know? Because I think it was you that told me this, that you can
tungsten,
where it weighs the same, and you literally got to chop that thing open.
Well, yeah, you can do that. There's actually a machine now that can look inside without having to resmelt it. But the point is, yes, I mean... Gold is much harder to verify. It's much heavier. It's much harder to move. I mean, the notion that you can settle millions, if not even billions of dollars in a 10-minute cycle anywhere in the world, I mean, this is the advantage of Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, there were some fascinating stories that I was reading of people taking their gold when they were fleeing, Nazi Germany, or different countries during when there's war, and how they would melt the gold into hangers and do different things to try to hide it, and still
it's very hard.
Risk. Yeah,
it's very hard. It's heavy.
Yeah, it's heavy. So, I think somebody couldn't. I read something that there was a guy that I don't know if it was you or Dominic who told me this, but. He basically fell over with his gold in his jacket and he couldn't get back up.
Oh, is that right? That's a good story.
I think it was Dominic that told me this. If you don't remember it, but yeah, he was getting on one of the trains or something like that, and he had all this gold he was hiding in his jacket because he couldn't put it out. Yeah. And apparently he fell over and couldn't get back up.
Doesn't help.
A fascinating story, yeah. But with Bitcoin, you can take $1 billion of wealth if you remember 12 words or 24 words, and exactly. You go anywhere in the world and nobody even knows you have it, right? It's super powerful about money being free like that. You have a quote here from Lynn. At its core, money is a ledger. Commodity money, gold, serves as a ledger governed by nature. Bank money, fiat, serves as a ledger governed by nation states. Open source money, Bitcoin, serves as a ledger governed by users,
and really by users and math, immutable math. And I would amend it to add that, and that's a very, very comforting. I mean, the notion that we created a mathematically based system that has redundancy, the redundancy of 20,000 nodes and X thousand miners and copies of the ledger everywhere. I mean, this is really, and it's distributed. So that, if there's an EMP in some country and that whole country's electrical grid goes down like Spain recently did, okay, so for a little while they can't move their Bitcoin, but
it's still there. It's
still there. It's not going anywhere. The electricity will come back, and that ledger's copied everywhere else.
Yeah. It's truly, it is beautiful. Cryptography and math. I think if you look at the ledger wallets, they have the phrase. I want to say it's verus et numeris, but it might be some variation of that, which just means kind of like faith in math or truth in math. Truth in numbers, faith in numbers, something along those lines. Here you wrote, money is information. A sound money system is critical to the proper functioning of markets and by extension, the entire economy. money prices represent information that guides the behaviors of producers and consumers. We kind of talked a little bit about this in the previous chapter, but I think this is, I want to say, what's the term? There's an Austrian economic term on this. I think it's like spontaneous order, or kind of like this information moves around. We talked about it when I did a series with Aaron Van Weerdum, where this information is sort of free and it flows, and you don't try to control it, right? Because there's so many different inputs all over that it's like,
Right.
and those inputs can change based off of people's feelings one day, right?
Right.
Like,
Absolutely.
hey, I like pistachios today, but tomorrow I might like macadamia nuts, right?
Right.
Like, usually I prefer it, but like there's no way to capture all of that,
Right.
by some kind of centralized planning. So this idea of money being information that's free, I think is extremely powerful.
I agree.
And you also talked a little bit about this idea of energy, right? Like money is, you're storing your life's energy.
Yes.
Money is your life's energy.
Yes.
So what is a more brilliant and beautiful system of money that is secured by physical energy, actual
Correct.
Newtonian physics of energy, this idea of proof of work?
Yeah.
I think it's beautiful. It's like,
Yeah. Well, by definition, money has to be hard to produce. And the notion of reaping without sowing, which is
Mhm.
what central banks do,
Yeah.
is just wrong. And an ounce of gold. A gold miner is a mini central bank, right? They create an ounce of gold, and that's
Yeah.
money. A
Mhm.
Bitcoin miner is a mini central bank. They create Bitcoin, but they there's proof of work. They expend energy to secure the ledger in the case of the Bitcoin miner, and to dig up gold in the case of the gold miner. And that energy proof of work is what makes the money have value in scarcity.
Because money is information, the messages sent by the monetary economy dictate in hard, clear terms the actions of billions of people. Naturally, humans have taken great pains to develop means to keep the information as pure and uncorrupted as possible. If an engineer orders a mechanical shaft of 500 millimeters and the machine shop produces one of 500 millimeters, but due to the fluctuation in the meaning of millimeter, it is 10% shorter than the engineer desired, both the engineer and the machine shop have been unable to cooperate productively.
Isn't that a great analogy?
Yeah.
I grabbed that from Nathan Lewis. I love that. It's a great analogy.
Yeah.
It's kind of, a monetary unit, it ought to be, an inch doesn't change. A mile doesn't change. A foot doesn't change. A kilo doesn't change.
How can you accurately even measure the
yeah.
economy? I think Parker Lewis talks about this, where it's like, how, if you don't know the supply of money, if you don't, if it can constantly be changed, like
a gallon
actually,
a gallon of water doesn't change. So why should the monetary unit change?
it's just
explain to me why we should have a monetary unit that, based on government behavior, is always continually being diluted.
And then they constantly fudge the numbers and do all this stuff.
There's all that
just
too.
all this engineering.
Yeah, there's all that too.
Obviously,
if we want to cooperate, if we want to have the purest and highest level form of cooperation to drive productivity growth, we've got to have a money that everybody understands is uncorruptible.
Would you say mixing money and politics is dangerous?
Oh yeah, yeah. You know the answer to that one. The minute we let the politicians take control of the money, it's interesting. I was just reading a book by James Turk talking about a newspaper editor in the 1830s in New York City was writing about how separating the money from and this is Jacksonian time, separating the money from the state was a very important issue. It's amazing. This has been around for a long time. When you let the government control the money, look out.
Yeah.
Problem.
As Friedrich Hayek observed, the politician, acting on a modified Keynesian maxim that in the long run we are all out of office, will inevitably succumb to the temptation to debase the currency.
Exactly right.
He couldn't have been more right.
Totally right. He was brilliant.
Sound money and personal freedom are inextricably linked. Talk to me about that.
Well, yeah, it's this is a James Turk quote as well in the book. As he points out, governments do not want there's powerful governments don't want their citizens to have freedom, and the governments want to be able to control their citizens to a certain degree. And so it's very interesting that when Mussolini and when Hitler and when others, Stalin and others, or not Stalin, Lenin and others have taken over societies, the first thing to do is grab all the gold and ban gold ownership. Even Roosevelt banned gold ownership and grabbed the gold. And so, this is a very anti-liberty, anti-libertarian, state control thought pattern. And so a state that has citizens that have their own money, their own wealth, can do what they want and can disobey the state or whatever, that's not in the state's best interest if they want to control everybody. And so it's very Orwellian that we've seen cases of where states, fascism in general tends to lead to, the people who are running the state, they want to grab the money and not let people have freedom.
I think this, in my mind, is one of the largest failures of gold as money.
Yeah.
If you look at history, if you look at World War II, for example, look at what Hitler did. The first thing he did was go to try to the countries he invaded was try to go get the gold, right?
Yeah.
The physical aspect of gold, I think a lot of people harp on, like you mentioned before, but I also think maybe that's one of its greatest vulnerabilities.
It is
that it's
if you've got the guns, you can go grab them. I mean, this is one of the beautiful things about Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And then Jason Lowery points this out so well in his book. I mean, an army can't steal your Bitcoin. The only way they steal your Bitcoin is they get your 12 words.
It really disincentivizes war, which we go back to. It's like, to me, that's everything. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, I don't want my kids dying in a war.
Yeah, as we've seen the centralization of governments over the past century, we've had some of the most bloody wars in all of human history, some of the most, largest acts of violence in all of human history.
Yeah.
And it scares me as more and more countries, as technology grows and governments still have this ability to just, essentially extract massive amount of monies towards the military machines.
Right.
It's like, it's kind of scary, right? When you think about it. I would almost make the case that, Bitcoin is probably, obviously to me and you, obviously we think it's one of the, the greatest breakthroughs in all of human history, but I think it's one of the most important inventions for peace that could ever exist.
Completely agree.
And I put a star by this in your book because I really love this quote what you wrote here. As tools to extract seigniorage, effectively taxing their citizens by self, the ability of a government to revalue its currency at any time strikes at the core concept of property rights, which are the heart of personal liberty and freedom.
Correct.
Love that quote.
Yeah, it's if you're a slave, if the government can take your money, you're a slave.
Yeah. And you also, to touch on what you said, one of the first moves by Lenin, Mussolini, and Hitler was to outlaw individual ownership of gold.
Right.
Begin to sense that there may be some connection between money, redeemable in gold, and the rare prize known as human liberty. Sound money, gold, and Bitcoin represent forms of money free from government issuance or control. Rather, these assets are rooted in principles of decentralization and intrinsic or algorithmic scarcity, making them resistant to manipulation and inflationary pressures. Sound money challenges the centralized power structures that have historically eroded wealth and personal autonomy. As we will see, separating money from the state will have profound implications for human freedom and liberty. Sound money is a moral issue. Humans are fallible and some people will cheat. Really?
I think we all know that.
Yeah. Let's unpack this a little bit. Even the noble Roman Empire, which rose to greatness under a sound money standard, resorted to clipping its coins and diluting the silver content of its currency, the silver denarius, to relieve mounting debt and economic pressures. How do you clip Bitcoin, Larry?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Pretty sure.
I think you're right. It is no surprise that the fall of Rome closely paralleled the debasement of its money. Going so far back, I know we talked about this a couple times. You have some stuff, even from the Bible, which is thousands of books written thousands of years ago. Some of the books of the Bible even were
honest weights and measures.
There you go. Don't cheat when measuring length, weight, or quantity. Use honest scales and weights and measures. Leviticus 19:35. Yeah. I am God, your God. So he says, this is a message from God almost, right? And then Proverbs. Unequal weights and unequal measures are both alike an abomination to the Lord. So this is even biblical, right? It goes back thousands of years.
Right. It's, this is not a new issue.
Mm-hmm.
People have been fooling with money for thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah. To those who think this is just all of a sudden something these Bitcoin guys made up and came up with,
No, the struggle's been going on since the beginning of time.
Yeah. By contrast, the whole system of fiat money fundamentally violates the law of sowing and reaping, allowing people to reap value where they have not sown time and energy.
Right.
That's like a an advertisement to go right after the central banks. They don't like that one.
No, they do not.
Who is Pastor Alan Armstrong? I haven't.
He's a friend of mine. You should meet him. He's up in
Yeah.
Ontario. I met him at the Bitcoin conference in Canada.
Okay.
He wrote a really good book, The Bible and Bitcoin. I highly recommend people read it, and that's why I grabbed a couple of excerpts from
Yeah,
it.
I'm gonna have to check it out.
Yeah, he just he's a pastor, but he looks at Bitcoin as a sound money that is truly God given, and I don't disagree with him. You know, I in a way I do think Bitcoin is going to save us from kind of the evil money changers who have built a corrupt system that benefits them.
So when our country was founded in 1776, even the founding fathers were aware of the perils of posed by fiat currency. Tell us, tell me a little bit about the Continental. What was so? There's that phrase, "Not worth a Continental." I've heard that before. So it's nice to hear the history of certain phrases.
Yeah. So the Revolutionary War, got started in 1776, and when the road to Concord, and the shot heard around the world, and wars are expensive, and it was kind of a ragtag bunch of folks, they needed a currency, and so they established the Continental. I'm sure that at the same time the British pound and sterling was still circulating, but they printed their own currency in order to fund the war, and they said it would ultimately be redeemable in gold and silver, and of course they broke that promise, and they printed too many of them, and ultimately that currency became worthless. And so anybody who had invested in Continentals or who had stored their wealth in Continentals was wiped out, and that was quite painful, obviously, to the new country. And so when the founders all got together and worked on the Constitution down in Philadelphia, they were very much aware of the risks of fiat currency, printing paper and saying this is money, right? And so Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution literally says only gold and silver, shall be deemed to be money.
Yeah, you have Article 8 and Article 10 here, I think.
Yeah, maybe there's a couple of
Article 8, I guess, gives the Congress shall have the power to borrow money on the credit of the United States, to coin money, regulate the value thereof in a foreign coin, and fix the standard of weights and measures. And to provide for the punishment of counterfeiting the securities in current coin of the United States. And then Article 1, Section 10 is what you just described, that no state shall coin money, emit bills of risk credit, or take anything or make anything but gold and silver coin a tender of payments of debts.
Right. So they were sound money people. They understood the risk, and because they had just lived through it firsthand. Yeah. And there are a lot of good quotes in there about various people saying, things about fiat currency and how it would lead to ruin. And they understood it. Yeah. And they truly got it. And so we started off with a very sound money country. And, the thing that I always find amazing is some people kind of shit on the gold standard, but the fact of the matter is we were on the gold standard
hundreds of years.
Yeah, hundreds of years. And it's not as though the country didn't progress and do pretty damn well between 1789 and 1971.
Yeah, I think we became the superpower of the entire world. So I think it was working pretty well.
It had flaws.
Despite
we kind of grew a decent country, and we were on the gold standard for most of it. So, and frankly, I think it was abandoning that, thinking that we were smart enough and could manage it, and abandoning that in 71 that started us down this path that's got us in this predicament that we're in right now.
So counterfeiting money was punishable by death. Do you know if they ever executed anybody?
I don't think they did.
They never did. Okay.
Based on what I've read. I mean, I could be wrong about that historically, but it was a serious crime, right? I mean,
now it's just part of monetary policy.
Well, that's exactly right. I was speaking to Paul earlier, and I said, G. Edward Griffin wrote a really funny thing in Preacher of Jekyll Island. He said, in that particular case, the Senate, the Congress, Treasury Department, and the President would all be subject to the death penalty, and the Federal Reserve would all be subject to the death penalty today because they all counterfeit money.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You have some good quotes here from early founding fathers and early Americans. George Mason of Virginia. They may pass a law to issue paper money, but 20 laws will not make the people receive it. Paper money is based upon fraud and knavery. Well, I wish he was right, but sadly the people are taking it.
Oh man! Sadly, people they lost touch with that.
Oliver Ellsworth of Connecticut. This is a favorable moment to shut and bar the door against paper money. The mischief of various experiments which have been made are now fresh in the public mind and have excited the disgust of all the respectable parts of America.
Right. These were both guys who worked on the Constitution.
When I read all that, I would have I was thinking about when you stood up and you called out the Timothy Geithner and all those guys. If you would have just read that, would have been funny.
Yeah.
They would have like killed you.
Well, they wanted to kill me anyway, Maddie. I can tell you that. That did not go over. That did not go over very well when I did that.
That's classic. George Washington cautioned, "We may one day become a great commercial and flourishing nation, but if in the pursuit of the means we should unfortunately stumble again on unfunded paper money or any similar species of fraud, we shall assuredly give a fatal stab to our national credit in its infancy.
Right.
Paper money has had the effect in your state that it will ever have, to ruin commerce, oppress the honest, and open the door to every species of fraud and injustice."
Right.
I mean,
these guys got it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, these are the founding fathers of the country. These are the guys who wrote down the documents that we tried to live by. We've slipped, but we tried to live by. And, in general, they created the greatest country in the world.
Yeah.
And yet, we've lost touch with some of the founding, the founding principles that we had.
This one's a wild one. For example, this is by Tony was it Dedden or Dean?
Yeah, he's a good guy. Yeah, he's an investment manager.
For example, we then see that dishonest money begets dishonest statistics, dishonest accounting, dishonest balance sheets, dishonest means, dishonest objectives, dishonest compensation policies, and dishonest relationships. That it begets ambiguousness and corruption in every aspect of life. I mean, like that to me, just like that's literally exactly what we've seen.
Yeah.
Across the board.
Yeah. Morals decay. When somebody thinks that you can cheat and get away with it, everybody thinks you can cheat and get away with it.
Did you see the Elon's recent Doge conference? Did you see what he said?
No. What did he say?
I mean, he was basically talking about like just the level of fraud that they've seen and the stuff that's happening. And he basically said like, first they just start off small, right? Like they just do little things.
Right.
And he basically said like, it's gotten to the point where these people are now renting out stadiums to have parties. And I mean, like I watched it.
It's
like,
insane.
My blood just started to boil. It's like, they've taken all this taxpayer money, right? Like not to mention all the money they're printing and stealing, but the actual like money that people pay.
Sure.
And it's like, the Department of Education has like a $4 billion COVID fund that they're using to rent out Caesar's Palace. And like, you can't even make this shit up. I mean, it's so absurd. And that's what he basically said. He's like, because they don't have to, he basically said that like the first thing they did was require you to submit a receipt or to like, to have it. But before there was nothing, you could just spend it for whatever. And he said that like when they first started looking, it was like small things, right? Like small to see if you catch it. And then now it's just like, $2 million to rent out a stadium, $4 million to rent out Caesars. Like he basically said it's just gotten so insane that essentially with the second they put in a requirement to submit a receipt or to put some kind of, hey, what is this for? Yeah. Not a single claim went through anymore. Like they just stopped.
Yeah.
I mean, like the true corruption of it all it's unfathomable, right?
Yeah.
Like,
it does not surprise me.
Like, they just, whatever bureaucrat, they're taking private jets and doing all this stuff and they swipe a card to spend $2 million to rent out Caesar's Palace to have a party for a night or whatever. It's like, you realize like 20 people work their entire lives to make that money and to contribute that tax dollar. Like it just blows me. It's insane. I mean, it's honestly,
it does not surprise me.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what happens when you get a system like this.
Yeah. Here's another interesting little tidbit that you put here. And I think it's important for people to understand is that, you'd think that like all this money that's created, they actually have to like spend some level of work to cut down the tree and take the paper and put the stamps on it and do all of the proof of work process to just print money, like literally print money. They're not even doing that anymore. It's like we're talking about, and here's the quote, "As crazy as it sounds, in today's world, fiat money can be created with a mere keystroke on a computer.
Yeah.
This bestows great power to those whose fingers touch the keyboard." So it's like there's some physical restraint to actually using a printing press where you actually have to like,
Yeah, like in Weimar Germany, they actually had to run the presses really hot to make all the money, make all the currency.
Yeah, they added zero.
We don't have that problem. We just log onto a computer. Hey, transfer $2 billion to JP Morgan.
Yeah. I've a quote that or a stat that I've always, harped on, and I haven't had anybody disprove it to me, but I've always accepted it, which is that, out of all the money that exists, like only like 2% of it is actually physically real.
Yeah, it's low.
The rest is like, just numbers in a database somewhere that's not even a decentralized database. So people can there's some level of verification that has to occur. It's like just these little silos and like,
Yeah, that's right.
A hacker can get in the system and add a couple zeros to a bank account. And at the end of the day, none of the books ever balance out. So kind of wild. Very wild. Here you have who is Kane McGuckin? I don't think I've met him before.
He's a really nice guy. He's a Bitcoiner, hardcore Bitcoiner, and he's a very moral guy, Christian guy. And he also wrote a piece, and I just thought it was so well written about the morality of sound money. And so I kind of paraphrased the piece and put it in the book. But if you come to the Bitcoin shows, you'll see him. He's there.
Yeah, I'd like to meet him.
He's a really good guy.
I start a quote from his couple paragraphs. Kane adds, the problem began when we moved from valuing quality work as a source of purpose to prioritizing consumption as a marker of success. This subtle but profound change is akin to a plane veering slightly off course. Initially, the trajectory goes unnoticed, but ultimately it leads to a destination far from its intended path.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, we've begun to worship money rather than represent what money used to represent, which was honest work.
Yeah.
If you just worship money, you'll do anything to get it.
You have a quote here from Ron Paul. I always looked up to him my whole life. He's just
great,
fantastic. The market rate of interest provides crucial information for the smooth operation of the economy. A central bank setting interest rates is price fixing and is a form of central economic planning. Price fixing is a tool of socialism and destroys production. Artificially low interest rates are achieved by inflating the money supply, and they penalize the thrifty and cheat those who save. They promote consumption and borrowing over savings and investing. Manipulating interest rates is an immoral act. It is economically destructive.
Correct.
I love that quote.
Yeah, I mean, couldn't said it better. He's the OG of the sound money movement in politics in America today.
Yeah, I love how you got so many great quotes from so many different people.
Yeah. Well, I tried to.
Yeah.
I didn't want to just make it. This is Larry's opinion. I wanted to point out that George Washington felt this way.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there are other actually notable people who understood the value of sound money.
Who's Judy Shelton?
Oh, Judy's a really great gold bug here in the United States, and she's got a PhD in economics, which allows her into kind of the Keynesian club. And she was at I believe she was at the Heritage Foundation in California for a long time. And she was actually, in later chapters, you'll see this, she was actually nominated by Trump to be on the Federal Reserve Board, and they just trashed her. They absolutely trashed her because she's an Austrian economist. And we'll talk about that later in the book as well. I mean, the Austrian school has just been dismissed and minimized because the Keynesian school is the one that supports the government. And so Judy,
of course,
Judy gets it. I mean, Judy would have us return to a gold standard.
But Larry, the Fed is apolitical. Haven't you read what they said? They have to remain politically neutral. They don't take a side.
And that's why they cut rates last year, right in front of the election. Yeah,
they're apolitical, right? I think if you look at the donations of who they donate,
that's right. Yeah,
it's only 98% to the Democrats, right?
I think that's right. Yeah, so
something like so absurd that
the notion that you have these people in those positions of power, it's nuts.
Yeah.
It's nuts that we let 12 people, run the monetary policy of this country.
Yeah. I'll read a quote from Ms. Shelton. Bringing up the moral aspect of money as a measure should not put someone in the category of a right-wing crank. Striving to ensure that money is trustworthy does not constitute a fringe movement. Indeed, having access to dependable money should be deemed a basic human right that deserves broad support.
Absolutely.
You heard it from George Washington himself.
I was going to say, she's not the first to say it.
Later in this book, we will discover how the Fed controls the narrative and how it has bought the academic economics community, which we're kind of just talking about. The fiat masters are terrified of any dissent that would ruin their game of privilege.
Yep, true.
Do you want to add anything else to this chapter before we close out?
No, not really. I just think that more and more people have to understand. Here's the thing I guess I would add, Maddie. I think that this fraud that's been perpetrated on us has been subtle. And, the average American isn't thinking about monetary policy. When I started writing the book, I ran it by some people that said, what's the Federal Reserve? I get it.
Yeah.
I mean,
no doubt.
You get up, you go to work, you do your job, you try and raise your family. Groceries are more expensive, and Elizabeth Warren says it's greedy corporations.
Yeah.
And who knows? Maybe you believe her. She's wrong, but you might believe her. And so what I've just tried to do here, and I think I kind of, as an older person in this whole space and as a sound money advocate, even before Bitcoin came along, I've tried to kind of tie this back to, there have been many of us who've been fighting for this for years and years and years. I mean, it was a very small fraction of us, the sound money movement. But frankly, as I was saying to Paul earlier, it's really great. We've got reinforcements. You are the reinforcements.
We're here.
It's like I was getting tired and I was about to time out, and then the Bitcoiners showed up. I'm like, thank God, right? And so what I tried. Part of what I tried to do with the book was to give everybody the history of the sound money camp, and it's been around for a long time. I mean, Andrew Jackson was part of it. George Washington was part of it. Garfield was part of it. I mean, I've got quotes, throughout the years of many, many people who've understood this was the fundamental problem. Lindbergh was part of it. He railed against the establishment of the Federal Reserve. This is Lindbergh's father, not the aviator. I mean, there have been many people fighting for this thing, understanding that sound money is a moral issue, that the government stealing from its people is wrong, and it allows them to create wars, and it's just a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think from my research and my studies, I mean, this isn't something that just is, an American thing over the past 300 years. I mean, this has transcended religions,
absolutely,
centuries and millennia.
Absolutely,
I mean,
this goes back thousands of years. But I mean, people are only so interested in that, and so I tried to write it from the standpoint of the American experiment because quite frankly, the American experiment got it right for a really long period of time,
no doubt.
And I think what's going on now is, I mean, the World War II generation is pretty well dead. There aren't many of those guys left, and they understood it, and we slipped away from it, and everyone's kind of looking at each other, going, "What's going wrong? Why is this so bad? Why are we having inflation? Why are the political parties at literally war with each other? Why are we on the brink of a civil war?" And they're trying to understand what it is, and as I said of other interviews on the book, I mean, that's why I wrote the book, because I thought, most people just don't know this story. They don't understand that this is the issue. I mean, you understand it because you're a Bitcoiner.
Yeah.
We understand that the core issue is this. If we solve this, a lot of other things get solved, right? And that's why I wrote the book the way I did.
It brings me back to that quote when you mentioned our generation. It's like we were born too late to travel to explore the world, and we were born too early or too late to travel to explore the earth, and too early to travel to explore the cosmos. But we were born just in time to fix the money.
Well, I think that's right. I mean, I think your generation will be a hero generation, and I think you will fix the money. And that's a beautiful thing. And that will be an enormous bright star going forward. When I think of all the bad things that happened in the last century, the $8 trillion of wars, the inflation, I mean, so many bad things that have happened. When I compare those to the great technology advances we've had, we should all be living much better.
Yeah.
When we solve this monetary issue, it's going to be a golden age. It really is. It's going to be beautiful.
I think for the first time in all of human history, I think we finally have a defensive weapon in Bitcoin that can actually solve this problem for good.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I've said this in other podcasts. I really think when the history is written of this from 50 or 100 years from now, there will be people who will discuss things, finance and economics, pre-Bitcoin and post-Bitcoin.
I saw that later in the
similar to pre and post, death of Christ. I mean, this is a big deal. This monetary thing, as you point out, it's been going on for thousands of years. That money has been something that was diluted, and we've got something that puts an end to that. Like, don't underestimate how important that is, in my view. So
I think Satoshi had a quote saying something along the lines is that this will be a new tool we can use on the front in the fight for freedom.
I think that's right, and he's absolutely right in my view. It really is a beautiful thing. I mean, at a lot of different levels.
I think this is a good stopping point. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks.